Madam Clerk, are we ready? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for being here. I'll call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Call your attention to the invocation portion of our agenda, which will be shared with us today by Pastor Tom Davies of the Ashbury United Methodist Church, after which we would like to ask our interim administrator, Ms. Dowse, if she would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Will you please stand?
Let us pray. Lord, who enlightens, we ask your supernatural wisdom as we make tough decisions in this meeting. Help us to carefully consider the relevant information that has been gathered. May those sharing information give us pertinent points so we all clearly understand. Help us to be innovative as we brainstorm solutions. Help us to wisely evaluate our options, considering the pros and cons. Help us to be unified in making the best possible decisions and to effectively carry them out. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Davies, you just please stand. You can stand where you are. We would like to acknowledge your presence with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and pray for us. Supernatural is what we need, and thank you for us. We truly appreciate your consideration, and we value the spiritual insights and guidance you shared with us today. We receive your thoughtfulness as an act of service to God. May he bless you and give you peace for your kindness shown toward us today. By these presents be it known that Tom Davies, pastor of the Ashbury United Methodist Church, is chaplain of the day. May his spiritual guidance and civic leadership serve as an example for all citizens of Augusta. Given under my hand this 20th day of June, 2023, Garnett L. Johnson, Mayor. Thank you so very much.
Pastor Davies, thank you for being here today, sir. That prayer what's much needed. Madam Clerk, let's continue.
All right. Sir, are we going to address our addendum agenda?
Yeah, let's do that before we do the recognitions. That'd be
Okay.
awesome. Thank you.
Our addendum agenda consists of items number 1 from our administrators' work session on last week, discuss administrator's job description. Item number 2 and 3 are appointment requests from Commissioner Alvin Mason. Number 2, to approve the reappointment of Mr. Butch Gallup to the Augusta Economic Development Authority. Number 3, to approve the appointment of Donnie Thompson to the Augusta Canal Authority, representing District 4, with an addition. Number 4 is an update from our homeless task force.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I don't have a screen right now, so Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If it's okay with my colleagues, I would ask for, on the addendum, for the appointments to be placed on consent agenda.
I think the appointments.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have, okay,
You-
without objection.
Without
Thank
objection. All right, Commissioner Frantham.
Are we going through the consent agenda now?
You. Yes,
So
sir. we
Okay,
can.
all right. So I'd like to
Okay.
consent the following agenda items.
From Mr. Mayor, I'm
There's
sorry.
no questions from my colleagues.
Just a moment, Mr. Okay, we have our consent agenda. You're going to the regular agenda now? Okay.
Agenda item number 11.
Well, Commissioner, we will need them to identify themselves for public record so that if there are any objectors.
For 11?
11.
It's just a federal
Oh,
aviation.
the alcohol petition?
Yeah, I'm skipping the alcohol
Oh,
piece.
okay.
Yes,
Okay. All right.
ma'am. 11 and 19. 22, 23, 25, 26. Consent.
They're doing consent agenda.
Okay, that was number 11, number 19, number 22, 23, 25, 26, and items 2 and 3 on our addendum agenda for the consent agenda.
Okay. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
I think Commissioner Johnson had his hand up first.
I'm sorry.
I'll yield to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have the administrative job description item on the addendum. I think that we should push that back a little bit more. I don't know if we're at the point to where we need to be making any decisions on that today. So I'm going to have to object that going on the agenda.
All right. Is it on the addendum? Yep. All right, so we do have an objection to addendum item number 1. Madam Clerk,
Okay.
duly noted.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, Chair recognizes now Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to approve the consent agenda with item number 3, waiving the 28 space requirement.
Waiving. Number 3. 28 space requirements, sir.
Can we get a presentation on that?
On item number 3?
Number 3.
All right.
Well, I just want to get some clarity, not so much of a presentation.
Madam Clerk, item 3 wants, you want a presentation on it.
Just clarity for that.
Okay.
That would be Ms. Delaney, Director Delaney, number 3.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and pull it, Madam Clerk,
Pull
if
it.
you don't mind. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Johnson. Oh, Mr. Garrett.
All right.
Okay.
All right, guys. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 3rd, Commissioner McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to go ahead and consent, if possible, item number 9. Okay, it's already been pulled? Good. Already consented, all right.
Already on consent. All right. All right, I see no one else in the
Motion
QL.
to approve
All right.
as stated.
All right, Madam Clerk, we have a motion from Commissioner from the 7th and a second from the Commissioner from the 5th.
4th, I think that was Mr. Mason.
Mr. Mason?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. If there's no further discussions, voting.
Ms. Scott and Mr. Jordan Johnson, please. It's unanimous.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, I guess we can move backwards now and go to the recognition portion of this meeting.
Okay. Item A, congratulations to our 2023 May Years of Service recipients. Congratulations. Director Woodard. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Johnson, Commissioners, Interim Administrator, guests, and citizens of Augusta. It is with great excitement that the HR Department would like to recognize our May Years of Service today. For the month of May 2023, we have 22 employees celebrating 5 to 50 years of service with Augusta. This month of May, this afternoon, we would like to recognize our 25 to 50 year recipients. For the month of May, the total years of service and institutional knowledge being celebrated today is 405 years. That's awesome. As I call your names, please come forward. Kathy Jackson, Planning and Development, 35 years. Freddie Hagan, Utilities, 35 years. Bryant Stone, RCCI, 35 years. Charles Mitchell, Sheriff's Office, 25 years. Michael Humphreys, Sheriff's Office, 25 years. Finally, Audria Herbert, Sheriff's Office, 25 years. Congratulations to all of our recipients.
Thank you again to all of you who commit your time to the city. It's greatly appreciated. What a day it is to celebrate such tenure for this great community. Thank you so much. Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir.
let's move on.
Call your attention to the delegation portion of our agenda. Item number B, Ms. Traynor has requested that her item be deleted. Item number C, Mr. Scott Hudson, Augusta Press, regarding Sunshine Law and access to information.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Hudson, thank you so much for being here, sir. If you will, for the record, please state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
All righty. My name is Scott Hudson. My address is 3612 Cullen Drive in Martinez.
Thank you.
I promise I'm not up here to deliver a sermon today. When I originally asked to speak before this body about a month ago, I really only wanted to convey to you the importance of following the law in regards to open meetings on a very sensitive but important issue to the public. So I thank you, Mayor Johnson, for asking me to return today, and I just intend to use my time to expound on what I originally meant to say. First of all, I want you all to understand I am not your enemy. The Augusta Press is not your enemy. Our colleagues in the print and electronic media, they're not your enemy either. We are not here to sell advertisements or garner clicks on our website. We're journalists, and we're here just to document what we witness and forward that information on to the public. Our role in covering the day-to-day business of government is rooted in the bedrock of democracy, and it is found and recognized in our Constitution. We are only here to inform the public of what's going on with the government, whether it is good or bad. Before each of you sitting on the dais in front of me ran for your elected seats, did you come down to the municipal building and sit through every committee meeting, commission meeting, subcommittee meeting, work session, emergency meeting? Likely, no. You, like everyone else, relied on the media to inform you. And likely what you read and saw on television spurred you to run for your elected office. I hate it when people call our city Disgusta. I simply hate it. I can't stand it when sports writers come to town during Masters Week and describe our city as, or describe the Augusta National rather, as the Eiffel Tower in the middle of a trailer park. That's not who we are. Our city is rich in history. Our culture is unique. Augusta is a place where people of all colors, all creeds, all backgrounds, and all genders tend to get along. We should be an example to the rest of the nation. We are a good people. We always have been. You are good people. All of you have overcome obstacles in life and excelled, and that's why you were elected to office. I do not stand before you today as an antagonist. My role as a journalist does make me somewhat of an adversary at times because it's my job to shine lights on what government officials are doing, and I do that in the name of the public, and sometimes that means revealing information that some would prefer be kept quiet. That adversarial role is tempered by my assumption that each one of you means well, that you mean to do the public's business lawfully and in good order. But my role also means letting the public know when that does not happen, whether by accident or through willfulness on the part of public officials. Because the public has the right to know what you're doing and why, because what you're doing is in the names of the citizens of Augusta, Richmond County. I know you all remember Lincoln's words in the Gettysburg Address, paraphrasing. He said that the government of the United States is of the people, by the people, and for the people. My role as a journalist and the role of the Augusta Press as a newspaper is to watch what our government officials do and alert the public if they stray from that caveat. I came here 2 weeks ago to sound kind of a clarion call that you all needed to walk a straight line and avoid straying into an illegal discussion in your executive sessions. Was I presumptuous? Perhaps, but you should know that that presumption was based solely on my desire and that of the Augusta Press to remind you of your prime directive in being here is to discuss the public's business in public for the benefit of the public. So, Mr. Mayor, this is your arena. Sometimes it may feel like a circus, but you are the ringmaster. With all due respect, the general counsel is an advisor. He advises you, but he does not control proceedings. So if you determine that a closed-door meeting may violate the law, it is your responsibility to open that meeting to the public. Otherwise, you have diminished the compact between the citizens and the government. Good faith functioning of government should default to openness unless there is a clear-cut reason allowed by law for secrecy by those conducting the public's business. The public's right to information regarding our government is sacrosanct. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, it is your duty to make transparency your very first choice. We know from history that when the public is informed, they are more likely to trust their government. However, when left in the dark, especially in the social media age, the rumor mill goes into overdrive and crazy conspiracy theories pop up. And such rumors are not good for anyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. I do see one of my colleagues in the queue. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 5th.
It's not worth it.
All right. Seeing no further questions, Mr. Hudson, thank you for being here today, sir. Much appreciated. Madam Clerk, let's continue.
Item number D, Mr. William Bill Fenoy regarding the naming of the Utilities Building after Director Tom Wiedmeyer.
Good day, sir. It is good to see you twice in a day.
Good to be seen and not viewed.
That's right. If you will, for the record, please state your name and address. You have 5 minutes, sir.
William Fenoy, 1420 Commonwealth Way, Hepzibah, Georgia, 30815.
Thank you, sir.
I'm here today to talk about the naming of the utilities building after Tom Wiedemeyer. I worked with Tom Wiedemeyer for 8 years as a commissioner, and I worked with Tom Wiedemeyer on several projects before I became a commissioner. During the whole time, the entire time that I worked with Tom, he didn't care if you was Republican or Democrat. He didn't care if you was black or white. He didn't care if you was rich or poor. He looked at the need, and if he could go do anything to fulfill that need to make Richmond County a better place, he didn't hesitate at all. The residents of Marion Homes were especially glad of the job that Tom Wiedemeyer did in the Marion Homes community. After a rain, they would have 5 and 6 houses that would lose water because of the water pressure. And that project was scheduled to take place 5 years, but Tom somehow found the money and he got that accomplished. Only thing I'm asking today is that the commission start the process of renaming the utilities building in honor of Tom Wiedemeyer. And that's it. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner. I see a few colleagues in the queue. If you don't mind, I would stay right there. You got a few minutes. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th, Commissioner Frantham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Fenoy, for those words. You were on this commission when we approved this.
Right.
My question is, why has it not been done? And whose responsibility was it to get done? Because it's over 2 years. Am I correct? Over 2 years we approved this? Yeah. And we still haven't changed the name. So can we, a director who handles the naming of buildings, why has it not been done?
Madam Administrator.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner, I sent an email to this body a week prior, which stated that the original requester that submitted an application for the name to be changed withdrew their application. So the commission approval that was received by this body stated for the process to begin, which is in accordance with our current ordinance. However, the applicant, which had the item added to the planning agenda per the ordinance, then came back, which we have also in record that I sent to this body, asked for that consideration to be removed.
But this body approved it 2 years ago. So why would an applicant of January, whenever it was, be the ability to overrun 6 votes that were on this diocese?
The approval by the commission was not the approval to change the name, but the approval to start the process, which is in accordance with our ordinance. The process was started. The applicant then had to go before the planning commission, but then later withdrew his application.
So it still doesn't make sense. If this body had 6 votes to approve it over 2 years ago, an applicant at any time can basically withdraw their request even though this body approved to move forward?
The body approved for the process to begin, which
and it should have started before this guy had the ability, I guess, to pull it back. And why did it not start for 2 years?
Well, it didn't start until the individual made a request, which then had to go to the administrator and then come before this commission to complete the process, to start the process, excuse me. And all of those documentations were sent. So if you would give me a moment, I'll be able to pull it up to give you some specifics.
All right.
Do you have a copy of the information? I tried to put it in my docs.
Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. The ordinance, Commissioner Franham, that the commission approved regarding the naming of its buildings,
Yes.
They're in your packet.
Whose responsibility was it from the time that it was approved 2 years ago by this body? Whose responsibility was it to get it back in front of this body? Because obviously they didn't do that, and that's the question I have.
Well, Commissioner Franham, the policy says that once the applicant makes the request to the commission, The commission then approves or denies the request to start the process.
But we did approve it.
Well, the process was in place when the applicant decided he no longer wanted to. The petitioner had to go to the Planning Commission and hold a public hearing. The public hearing was not held because the applicant withdrew their request. So it fell, for lack of a better, it was on the dead docket at that point, because that's our process. And I'll take, for instance, when I think Commissioner Fenoy came to the commission along with Mr. Riles to name the Robert Howard building out at Recreation in honor of Mr. Howard. The request was to start the process. The process the commission approved. Then Mr. Fenoy and Mr. Rouse went to the Planning Commission and petitioned the Planning Commission in a public hearing to approve their request. At the end of the public hearing, there were no objections. The Planning Commission recommended to the commission to proceed. And that's the process. And it happened.
No, I get it. Just seems like at the point that this body approved it, that we would have some ownership in the process. Like, why do we even approve it then?
And in that meeting, then, and I pulled the minutes, Mayor Hardy Davis stressed to the commission at that time, it was only to start the process. That's what the commission was voting on, to allow the applicant to move forward to the Planning Commission for a public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Frantham, you good? All right. Commissioner Fenoy, you wanted to add something. You good?
Just that I'm not here to start an argument. I'm just
okay. All right. Gotcha. All right.
I mean, Tom Wiedemeyer was a good guy, and I think that we need to show our appreciation. I think that as a commissioner, I know that all of our department heads are well paid, but a lot of them go way beyond the call of duty, and they excel. And I think that when we have department heads that do something like this, as a commission, we need to show our appreciation for the great job that they've done. Yeah, so that's why I'm here, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Fenoy, thank you for coming before this body, and I enjoyed serving with you. You always had my respect, and I respect what you have said about Tom Wiedemeyer. I have the luxury and pleasure of working with him for 8 years as well, and what you're saying is the truth. Matter of fact, anybody that had worked with him would understand what your words meaning behind your words. I don't care if it was a commissioner or an individual like you spoke about, he would answer the call and do whatever. He went above and beyond. But on September 1st, 2020, it was passed on this floor to move the process forward. Mr. Fenoy, Mr. Hassan, Commissioner Sias, Bobby Williams, and Marion Williams, and Dennis Williams voted in favor to start the process. And I would like just to let our colleagues know, appreciate if you could support this to start the process, and let's hope that it'll continue to move forward. But thank you, Mr. Fenoy.
Thank you, Commissioner from the 10th. Chair now recognizes Commissioner from the 5th, Commissioner Williams.
Yes. May I ask Ms. Dowse a question, sir?
You may. Minister Dowse.
Okay. So, Ms. Dowse, did you pull up any information?
I did, sir.
Okay, so give us the information. I just want to know where we need to go from here. Is it just a situation where we need to give the okay to move ahead, or what?
So as stated, the commission approved a motion to start the process, which Mr. Rosen at the time was the applicant who then submitted a request to Planning and Zoning to have the request added to the next Planning and Zoning meeting in April of that year, which was in 2021. He, for personal reasons, had to have the date moved back. When the date was moved back, he then stated that he would like to withdraw his interest in having the building named after Mr. Wiedemeyer and instead dedicating a memorial garden to him rather than the building renaming. As a result, the request was pulled and the motion was not heard on the floor by the Planning Commission, and the process stopped. This was all in accordance with the commission-approved ordinance.
Correct. So my question here today is to put this back in motion to put his name on the building or what have you. I guess I need to ask the attorney a question.
Sure. Attorney Brown.
You awake? You awake?
Very much, sir.
Very much, sir. So will we need to vote again to put this in motion or what?
The process will begin again, I believe.
With the motion and the vote?
If such is on the agenda and the public has notice.
Okay, so when it comes up to the item, I guess we can vote again to put it back in motion or what have you.
Is on this agenda?
Okay. Well, Guilfoyle has a motion. I guess when we get to it, we can vote it up or down or whatever people want to do.
Thank you. Attorney Brown, does it require a petitioner to move forward, or is a motion in passing this commission, will that suffice?
I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but I'm not currently aware of any prohibition against a commissioner initiating the process as long as it comes to the floor like any other citizen.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. And I remember when this came to us. I remember when we voted on it. And I remember coming to a meeting and the process just all of a sudden stopped and it was ended or what have you. Never heard about it. Didn't know why the process stopped or what have you, but we need to stop throwing shoes at each other. And when we get to Mr. Guilfoyle's motion, if you're going to vote for it, vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor. I know my colleague from the 10th said that we should start this process, so if it's okay with him, I'm going to put that in the form of a motion that we start the process to rename the utilities building after Director Tom Wiedemeyer.
We're going to have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Thank you. We're going to recognize a few other commissioners that are in the queue. Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for Interim Administrator Dowse. I think you mentioned something about the record showing that there was to be some sort of memorial garden versus the naming of the building. Was that done?
That would have been done by the petitioner, by the applicant. That was not a city action. Mr. Rosen stated that he would move to then create a memorial garden.
Right, but I'm wondering, was that done? Do we know whether it was done or not?
I do not know. I have not made any attempts to meet Mr. Rosen.
According to Commissioner Fenoy, that was done. Okay, thank you. In fact, Mr. Mayor, I think we might have some sort of record here. I think we got 14 commissioners in the House. 1, 2, 3, 4, 14. We should be able to get 6 votes somewhere. Having said that, okay.
Yeah,
well, all right, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 1st, Commissioner George Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question is for the administrator. Do we know, well, I guess you just said you hadn't heard from it, so we don't know why the petition withdrew the petition in the first place?
No, sir.
Okay. But they just wanted to go the garden route, and that memorial has been done at the interest of Marion Homes. Okay.
Thank you.
That's the only question, just to figure out why he withdrew. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 6th, Commissioner Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my colleague, Mr. Garrett, made a motion, and before we vote on that, my question is, the previous applicant withdrew his petition. So now if the commission is going to vote again to begin the process again, who is going to carry the banner? Will Mr. Fennoy be the petitioner or the applicant? Because if we vote to start the process, there still has to be an applicant or a petitioner to carry it to planning and zoning. So where will that go?
Attorney Brown.
Our process does allow a commissioner to be the petitioner, as well as a member of the citizens or a staff member of the government can also be a petitioner. So if a commissioner is making a motion, my assumption is that that commissioner is stepping forth as the petitioner.
So noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. I don't see any other commissioners in the queue. So, Madam Clerk?
So are we going to have a companion item with Commissioner Guilfoyle's item and Mr. Fennoy delegation, or are we going to do it separately? That's Andy Cheek.
So-
I'm sorry. Okay.
Mayor, can clarity?
Yes, sir. Commissioner from the
So
Senate.
the commission's going to carry the agenda, moving it forward, and then it's the naming of the building in Tom Wiedemeyer, is
The
that correct?
naming, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do we-
Well, at this
That's what I just said.
Mr. Fennoy, I don't, since he's making the request.
We're waiting on the attorney right now. Madam Clerk, I think there's a consensus to make these companion items,
Yes, sir.
if that's all right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. All right, Commissioner.
Before we do that, I think Commissioner Marion Williams is in the
He is.
auditorium.
Yeah, we're gonna have him come up.
You gonna waive you want to come up?
You want?
We're gonna make it a companion item, sir. You familiar with that?
Commissioner Williams, you good with that? You
He
good?
didn't like it?
He wanna say something. He wanna speak. Commissioner Fennoy, thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank all of y'all for your support.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, let's go ahead and read into the records. Next delegation item. We're not gonna make
Okay. Item number E, Mr. Marion F. Williams regarding naming an Augusta Recreation Department athletic ball field in honor of former Commissioner Andy Cheek.
Thank you so much. Mr. Williams, thank you for being here, sir. If you will, for the record, please state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. My name is Marion Williams. I live at 1941 Crater Drive, Augusta, Georgia, 30906. Mr. Mayor, I wanted to, and I'm thanking you for the companion item, and I understand that, but I have Mr. Robert Cheek, my other brother, which is Andy Cheek's brother as well, who came down to just to share just a little bit, and y'all know the process, and y'all know how Andy served. But I wanted to make sure that we did not just let this fall through the cracks or make it a companion item and nobody knows exactly what we are really doing. And it was a sportsman, and it was a hard worker, and it was a dedicated server. And it served this community as an elected official. I take my hat off not just to him, but to his whole family for the way he was brought up, the way he was raised. He ran against a professional elected official, Mr. Shavers, I believe it was, at that time. And I didn't know Andy until we ran for the position. Andy won his seat and came and stayed back to help me and did not know me. But in that process, learning him, learning his demeanor, learning his commitment to people, we two began to be closer than brothers. And his brother Robert and I knew Robert here before I even know Andy, didn't know who he was. We retired from the CSX Railroad together. But my point is, Mr. Mayor, that I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with a man like Andy, who had the people of Augusta at his heart. Andy would do anything he could for anybody. He went across lines, and I want to share just a couple of stories with you. Housing Neighborhood Development was building, rehabbing home, Robert, and we went to a lady house that really couldn't afford to have very much done, but she had some work done, and the contractor had more paint on the windows than he had on the wood around the windows. And Andy said to the contractor, said, "Mister, this is not allowable." He said, "That paint was already on the windows." He said, when you accepted this job, mister, you accept taking the paint off of it. And he stood for that. He said, "I wouldn't allow that in my district, and I'm not going to allow it in any other district in the city of Augusta." So those are kind of things that Andy Cheek did that I'm really proud to call him my friend and my brother for being able to stand. And he was accused and he was criticized. He was ridiculed about doing black issues. And he did right issues. And I thank God for the opportunity to work with him and to be the man that he is and the man that his family raised him to be. So if you're going to make these campaign items, Mr. Mayor, I don't need the 5 minutes, but thank you. I did want to make sure that I came and let you know how much I appreciate the time that I spent with him and the stuff that I learned from him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Cheek, would you like to say something? Are you good? If you will, just for the record, please state your name and address.
Robert Cheek. I live at 1020 Country Place Drive, Augusta, Georgia. And I'd just like to say I appreciate the opportunity for this to be put before the commission for my brother.
Thank you, sir. There are no commissioners in the queue. So, Madam Clerk, we have these as companion items. We have a motion and a second. Are we prepared to vote? Seeing no further, Commissioner, can you restate?
The motion is to begin the process for the naming of the Augusta Utilities Engineering Building at 425 Walker Street in honor of late Director Tom Wiedmeyer, and one of Augusta Recreation athletic ball fields in honor of former Commissioner Andy Cheek.
I do have a question before.
You got it. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 5th.
I guess Mr. Guilfoyle put this on. What ball field are we talking about?
Diamond Lake, sir. One of the ball fields there, not on the building, just one of the ball fields.
On one of the ball fields?
Yes, sir. That was the request from the Cheek family back in April when I was at their services, sir.
I got you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner from the 5th, you good? All right. Yes, sir. All right. Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. You've restated. We're voting.
That motion carries 9-1, with Mr. Mason voting no.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's continue.
Okay, that brings us to our consent agenda. Oh, the pool one. Oh. Number 11?
Number 3.
No. I'm sorry. Got off track here. Huh? 3? Oh, the motion to approve the request for concurrence with the Augusta, Georgia Planning Commission to approve a petition by the Historic Properties on behalf of Clay Boardman and Marion Partners, LLC, requesting a rezoning from a Zone B2 general business to a zone planned unit development affecting property located at 739 Broad Street.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson, you asked us that this be pulled just for clarity.
Yes, sir. Just want to know a little bit about this, and I believe the Mayor Pro Tem had a exemption he was asking for. Just want to know what's happening. This is my first time hearing of this. I see in big bold letters District 1. I just want to make sure that at least the commissioner of the district knows what's happening.
You got it. Director Delaney?
All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. So Z-23-22 is a rezoning from B2 to PUD. It is in reference to the property at 739 Broad Street. It is what the planning department considers an adaptive reuse, and they're using it in historic building in order to provide residences downtown. There were 8 conditions of this approval, but the Planning Commission and the Planning Department is in support of it. They're essentially going to provide 56 residences in the building. They may at some point come back and do commercial space at the bottom, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I can field any questions. They will have to go for a certificate of appropriateness because it is a historic building and it falls within the Historic Preservation Commission's purview. But outside of that, this is the application that the Planning and Department and the Planning Commission can support.
Which building is that on 739?
The Marion Building.
Okay, so this is the Marion Building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what exemption are we talking about?
I didn't put forth one.
I'll yield. I see the Mayor Pro Tem is in the queue.
Okay.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th.
I believe the applicant is here as well, as if he would like to speak towards this. Mayor, if that's okay.
That will be fine. Sure,
But
sir.
as he's making his way up here, it came to my attention that the Planning Commission as well as the staff recommended that he go and secure 28 parking spaces for this building. And it was my understanding that a while back, I believe it was 2018 or 2019, the Planning Commission as well as this commission waived parking requirements for businesses downtown. Wasn't that correct?
I can't be 100% sure. I can tell you that we've had this discussion in the 5 years since I've been in the planning department about the absence of a parking management plan for the downtown area, thereby causing confusion with regards to what should be required parking. Residential uses should have some type of designated parking.
Right.
So the applicant actually recommended or said they could meet the 28.
And it's also come to my attention that the applicant was pointed in the direction of securing the 28 spaces from the city-owned parking deck that is managed for the convention center. And I don't think that's a good use of that convention center parking lot. I know he was sent there via Central Services, was put in contact with him as well. And so I'm trying to understand why we would basically tie up 28 parking spaces within our parking deck downtown that is used for when conventions are here in town, when I think there's much better uses, as well as probably privately owned ones that they could secure. But I'm trying to understand why we would point them in that direction of the parking deck, as well as really we don't want another depot property kerfuffle in 5 years.
Well, a couple of things here with regards to that. One of the things you want to keep in mind is that anytime there's a residential development, we do ask about parking. This is a downtown area. The applicant had proposed to buy potentially a $400,000 small parcel at a corner. Then they came back and said that parcel wasn't viable. So then we talked about off-site options. One of the things we look at is underutilized parking in the downtown corridor. So it is not a stretch by any means to look at any underutilized parcels or parking areas. And it is our job to recommend potential underutilized spaces. And one of the other things that we divulged to the applicant was that this was an option to pursue underutilized parking and find out if it's underutilized. We definitely did not mandate it or require it, but we do have a responsibility to look at that as opposed to him purchasing a $400,000 lot just for parking, especially when we would like to see that space used for a building.
I'm going to let the applicant speak. I think he has some.
Yes, sir. If you will, for the record, please state your name and address.
My name is Ryan Sanders with HD Historic Properties. We are addressed at 154 Krog Street, Atlanta, Georgia 30307.
Thank you, sir. You have a few minutes.
So let me first start by saying we're excited to be in the city of Augusta. We're eager to proceed with the adaptive reuse of the Marion building. I think it's going to be a great project. And also, I want to say that it's been a very collaborative and productive, positive experience working with the Augusta P&Z. Our initial application to the Planning and Zoning Department didn't reference any offsite parking. The building was built in the 1900s. It originally had over 100 office buildings. transitioning the building to multifamily, we want to go down to 56 residential units. And we've been told that we would be obligated to provide 28 parking spots. We believe that we can live with that requirement. And we've said as much to the planning department, we said as much to the planning commission. With that said, we have some reservations. It makes it significantly more difficult to reactivate buildings in the downtown area if there's a parking requirement along with it. In this case, the building historically on the same 0.2 acres has been utilized for 100 office buildings where, presumably employees were coming and going each day. Our usage, the adaptive reuse of the building, actually lessens the impact. We go from 100 plus office buildings to 56 apartments. But the other reservation we have is that there are additional historic buildings in the downtown area in proximity to this building. And we really are concerned with the precedent that we're setting, and that we were thrilled that the commissioner raised this talking point so we could discuss it a little bit. By agreeing to the 28 spot requirement for this development, we have a lot of money invested in this. We can live with this requirement, but it limits what we can do in the future. There's other buildings that are currently on the market within a stone's throw of this building that don't have parking. And if I set a parking requirement on this development, it limits my ability to come in and redevelop additional buildings that don't have parking. So while the current staff recommendation is something that we can live with if required to, it allows us to go forward with this one project, we're very concerned with the precedent. And to the extent that we could remove that 28 parking spot requirement, we're not setting the precedent in this particular zoning hearing, and it just allows us to go forward with other projects if they present themselves. So we appreciate your consideration. I've attempted just to describe the issue. We've had these same conversations with staff, and they understand our position. Respectfully, to the extent that that we could remove that 28 parking spot requirement, that would be our preference. And we can live with it either way, though.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Garrett, are you clear before I move back to Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, before we move forward, I would like to put a motion on the floor that we do approve this request in concurrence, but taking out that 128 space requirement.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and there's a second. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, do you have that motion? You
Yes,
clear?
sir.
All right. Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the first. Commissioner Johnson.
How does, Ms. Delaney, how does that substitute affect whatever your staff has recommended? Is this something that the commission approved via policy? Like what would be the consequence of approving the substitute motion?
Based on the ordinance, they were supposed to provide 96 spaces. So the planning department worked with the developer to get to a number that they could agree to, which is where the 28 came from. Planning didn't give the 28 number. They provided the 28 number, and we agreed to it. Because we want to see this redevelopment happen. So this was what they had a comfort level with, which is why we recommended approval of it also. With regards to that, I want to keep in mind that there are 56 residences coming to this building, and absolutely only 4 handicap spaces if you remove the requirement. Again, we are considerate of adaptive reuse. We think it's important, but if the developer told us that he could accommodate 28 instead of the 90 plus, and we worked with that and agreed to it.
Yeah.
I think that you do want to consider these on a case-by-case basis. And in addition to that, give some serious consideration to the parking management plan for the Central Business District and Entertainment District.
I agree, and I think that that's something that we should be able to deal with. I mean, downtown already has a parking issue.
Mm-hmm.
I love people coming downtown, but I don't want my parking spot taken either. So I think that if we can live with this recommendation from the planning department, we should just live with the recommendation from the planning department. So I'm going to make that in the form of substitute motion to approve the item as stated in the agenda.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, we have a substitute motion and a second.
I do have a question.
All right, I'm going to come back to you in just a second, sir. Madam Clerk, you good?
I am.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the fifth.
So my question is if you don't have parking requirements and they have people in their building, so they just park wherever.
You have to go find your parking.
Just go find you a parking space.
Yes.
Okay, so that's not really
It's part of living downtown.
good. If you have people in your building and then they have to park across the street at Mellow Mushroom or somewhere like that, and somebody else has a parking down by Farmhouse or what have you. So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
In pursuit of the redevelopment of downtown Augusta as a more urban area, we are cognizant of the fact that you want to have a reduction in parking and creating parking decks. Going from 96 down to 28 is a substantial reduction. It does not cover all of the units. And I do think that in good conscience in working with this developer, we would be, we'd have to, as projects move forward, look at this adaptive reuse and what it entails. I don't think it's time to throw out all of the requirements because the ordinance does apply. But I do think that parking management entertainment district is necessary.
Yeah, and I think that's significant. You said that 28 units still won't cover all the folks that live in the building. So you just got a little partial parking thing here.
Off-site too, so they're going to be walking about 2-3 blocks if they decide to go that route. That was just, you know, we're all looking at all the parcels around and not wanting to utilize a vacant parcel just for parking when there's such better uses for it.
And you said that was knocked down from 90-something to 28. Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you, Commissioner from the 5th. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th. Commissioner Garrett.
And I'm going to bring this point back up. I've actually been messaging back and forth with one of the colleagues that I used to serve with on the Planning Commission, and he also remembers from 2018 when the Planning Commission, as well as this commission, approved waiving downtown parking requirements. I know the director stated that she thought that was incorrect, but I do remember that action taking place. It was actually for one of the big property owners downtown that came in to request it while he was redeveloping some other properties. I know that there is a blanket policy across the county for parking requirements for apartments and housing and for retail and everything else, but I think that it would be definitely worth looking back into those meeting minutes back. And I'm not even sure if you were here yet then. I think that Melanie was still here when that took place. But once again, I think that this sets a bad precedent for downtown. Those parking requirements were waived in an effort to spur and entice downtown development and to reutilize a lot of these older buildings that could be redeveloped, as this gentleman is trying to do, so we don't have giant, dilapidated, empty buildings standing on our Broad Street. One of the things that's been missing downtown for a long time is people living down there instead of just working. So once again, I think that this sets a bad precedent if we go forward with this, but we'll see where the votes fall.
If I can clarify.
Yes, ma'am, Director Delaney.
I stated I couldn't remember the dates. I do want to make it clear, though, that the ordinance does allow for the Planning Commission and the full commission to make a recommendation to void the parking requirements. This is planning's and the Planning Commission's recommendation for the sustainable adaptive reuse of this particular building at this time. This is not intended to undermine any previous decision, nor is it making the recommendation as far as it being a precedent per se, because adaptive reuse is just that. We have to be adaptive when the cases come. We have to look at the situation, and this is a historic property. It is going to go through another level of review. So this is by no means a recommendation to be combative or in any way.
Thank you, Director. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th, Commissioner Fathom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Delaney, was there any talk about using the parking lot behind the building?
Yes.
That Clay owns?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what happened there?
I'm happy to speak to that.
Sure.
So the parking lot behind the building, we are still working with Mr. Boardman on securing that property and being able to use his 1/3 interest in that parking lot
Right.
for this building. And that offer is still on the table. It's a significantly expensive piece of dirt that we are discussing with Mr. Boardman, and we're not 100% certain that we can make the numbers work and acquire this additional parking spot. So for those reasons, we did not include the additional off-site parking lot in our initial application. And just as a point of clarity, there is no existing multifamily ordinance for District 1. In the City of Augusta zoning code, the District 1 zoning language references District 2, which references District 3, and so on until you get to a fourth district that has a multifamily ordinance. So the City of Augusta ordinance is very unclear for District 1. The reason why that we are trying to keep the parking requirement out, or would like to keep the parking requirement out, is that it's a material expense to the project. The Marriott, we've discussed that they reference might be an option. We've discussed that with the managers of the deck. That could be as much as $50,000 a year. Quite frankly, it would be better to debt finance the acquisition of the 1/3 parking lot interest rather than to go the route with the city parking deck. But we would, and of course, we are past the point of fighting on principle, or we're not really fighting, discussing on principle, because we have a project that we're heavily invested in, and at this point, we are obligated to take the pragmatic solution that gets us down the road with this project. We can live with the 28 as we stated to planning and zoning. But quite frankly, we prefer to see that patch of dirt behind the Marion and Lamar buildings used as a parking deck. We'd love to see that go up as either a city financed parking deck or some sort of bond arrangement, such that parking can be available to any developments we might take on, and also to anybody else in the downtown area. I would also point to the fact that I would say the majority, I can't point you to another city of this size that has a downtown parking requirement for multifamily development, for the very reason that it makes it hard to reactivate these blighted buildings if there's a downtown parking requirement that didn't exist for the original usage. It's not like we're taking the Marion building that at one point in time had on-site parking and trying to remove it. The Marion building has always been on the 0.2 acre parcel. It's never had on-site parking, and it's always served when it was in business, it served the downtown community well. By reactivating it, we're just turning the building back on, and if every building that historically did not have parking were required to find parking, you'd have huge areas of your downtown that could never be reactivated. So it certainly makes it a lot easier to get these historic buildings that are beautiful and have a ton of potential back functioning for the economy of the city if there is not that parking requirement.
Thank you, sir.
And my last question is what was the planning commission vote and discussion on the parking aspect? Was it unanimous? Do you remember?
It did come back, I want to say unanimous. Let me double check.
It was unanimous.
Unanimous.
Put in the parking of 28 spots.
Yes.
Okay.
The reduction from 96 to 28, yes.
Thank you.
Good, Commissioner from the 7th. All right, Madam Clerk, I think it's time to vote. I don't see any other colleagues in the queue. We're going to go with the substitute motion first. If you will, restate that motion, please.
Motion to approve a request for concurrence with the Augusta Planning Commission to approve a petition, Historic Properties, on behalf of Clay Boardman and Marion Partners, LLC, requesting a rezoning from a Zone B2 general business to a PUD planned unit development affecting property containing 0.21 acres located at 739 Broad Street.
And for clarity, I think this is the motion that includes the 28
parking
spaces. All right. So, colleagues, we're voting.
That motion carries 7-3, with Ms. McKnight, Mr. Garrett, and Mr. Guilfoyle voting no.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Director Delaney, sir, thank you for being here.
Thank you for your consideration.
Yes. All right, Madam Clerk, let's continue.
For the benefit of objectors for our planning petitions, let's do it this way. Ms. Walton, is she in the chamber? Okay. Will you present the petitioners, please? Because this will be our first public hearing for them, since we do.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners.
first applicant, alcohol number 23-15, is a request by Mufflim Coburn for an on-premise consumption liquor, beer, and wine license for Augusta Hawaiian LLC located at 2801 Washington Road, Suite 105. There will be Sunday sales. The Sheriff's Office and Planning and Development approved this application. Do we have any objectors?
Are there any objectors? Seeing no objectors? Is there an object? Oh, there she is. Are you an objector? No. Oh, she's the applicant.
She's the applicant.
Okay, I'm confused.
State your full name and home address.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Mafelmi Coburn, and my address would be 2203 Pleasant Drive, Augusta, Georgia, 30907.
Thank you so much.
Are we approving each one or doing them all?
We can do them all if
Okay.
we get the same.
So long as
results.
we don't have any objectors, we can do them all, right?
Right.
Okay.
Do we have any objectors to any of our alcohol petitions?
Well, we need to name them for the
we got it
record.
for the record.
And
All
then
right.
have the petitioner.
Okay.
And then before we take a vote, we'll take a vote at the end.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Next one.
This is an existing location, alcohol number 23-16, a request by Florence Henley for an on-premise consumption liquor, beer, and wine license to be used in connection with Tiffany's Eatery located at 828 Broad Street. The applicant failed to purchase the license during renewal, and she's reapplying at this time.
All right.
Do we have any objectors?
There any objectors to this item? Any objectors? All right, madam. She's a petitioner.
State your full name and home address.
My name is Florence Henley. My address is 4301 Northwest 7th Court, Plantation, Florida.
Thank you, madam. Any objectors? Seeing none, let's continue.
This is an existing location, alcohol number 23-17, a request by Hemang D. Broussard for a retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with Gas Express located at 1121 15th Street. Do you prefer I read all three for this applicant? Or?
Yes, ma'am, continue. We're going to read all three.
The next one is an existing location, alcohol number 23-19, a request by Hermaine D. Broussard for a retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with Gas Express located at 912 Walton Way. Existing location, alcohol number 23-18, a request by Hermaine D. Broussard for a retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with Gas Express located at 2058 Central Avenue. Do I have any objectors to these three alcohol petitions?
Are there any objectors?
Mr. Hermaine was here last week, but he had planned vacation for this week, but he does have a representative here on his behalf.
Madam, if you will, for the record, state your name and address.
Billie Jean McDonald, address 2623 Washington Road, Augusta, Georgia 30904.
Thank you. Again, are there any objectors to either of these petitions? Seeing none, madam, continue.
Existing location, alcohol number 23-21, a request by Eunice Yee for a retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with Get It To Go, located at 3379 Milledgeville Road. Do we have any objectors to this alcohol petition?
Any objectors? Seeing none, madam, for the record, please state your name and address.
My name is Eunice Yee. Address is 761 Michaels Creek, Evans, Georgia 30809.
Thank you, madam. Let's continue.
This is a new location coming back for reapproval. Alcohol number 22-36-2, a request by Siderius Manuel for an on-premise consumption liquor, beer, and wine license to be used in connection with Bar Patio located at 305 12th Street. Do we have any objectors to this alcohol petition?
Any objectors? Seeing no objectors, ma'am, if you will, for the record, please state your name and address.
Sedaris Manuel, 205 River Place, Unit 629, Augusta, Georgia, 30909.
Thank you, ma'am.
And all of these applications have been approved by Planning and Development and the Sheriff's Office.
What about?
What, 20, Ms. Walton? Number 20?
20?
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Mr. Reese. This is an existing location, alcohol number 23-20, a request by James Reese for a consumption on-premise liquor, beer, and wine license to be used in connection with De Boots, located at 917 Broad Street. Do we have any objectors to this alcohol petition?
Are there any objectors? Seeing none, sir, if you will, for the record, please state your name and address.
James Reese, and my address is 125 Hamilton Grove Drive, Puller, Georgia, 31322.
Thank you so much. Madam?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, we have a motion from the Commissioner from the 7th and a second from the Commissioner from the 9th.
Yes, sir.
Seeing no other colleagues in the queue, we're prepared to vote. Voting.
Ms. Garrett's out. That motion carries with Mr. Garrett out.
Thank you, madam. Thank you all for being here. Madam Clerk, let's continue.
I believe that takes us to, well, we'll let them leave.
21's already done.
Yeah.
24.
Okay. You can move forward.
All right, madam.
Oh, you need to put it on the screen. Let's see. We're going to disseminate the administrator's recommendation on this item.
Okay.
Okay.
We need to support this. It's a good thing for our kids. We need to support this. This junior achievement, right?
Yeah, just one. Huh? $2 million from the school board. I mean, I'm sorry, we got to cut somewhere. Columbia County.
You got one, Mr. Brown?
Is that one page?
They do great things.
There's a lot of movement going on around here. So he don't want to give us money. All right, where we at? Where's everybody? Where'd Attorney Brown go? He done left the building? No, that's yet. I haven't done him yet. He had to step out. Do we need someone to sit in for him? We got to wait till he gets back. I haven't signed him yet, ma'am. Yeah, because it's. Yeah, come on, because it's going to be some dialogue here before we get down. All right, I'm gonna sign them. Yeah, yeah, I gotta sign these things. All right, Madam Clerk, you ready? We need to read this I mean, we don't need to
That's
read.
the administrator.
All right.
She can go through it. That's her work product.
All right. Madam Administrator, are you ready?
Yes.
All right.
In response to the directive given by the Commission on Tuesday, June 6, I render the following written communication, which is my recommendation regarding the Junior Achievement Discovery Center on behalf of the CSRA. This project benefits not only Richmond County Board of Education students, but also Columbia County, as well as a host of business partners, as well as industries throughout our local geographical area. In response to meeting with Ms. Ashley Whitaker, who is also here today to represent JADC, I recommend that Augusta enters into a multi-year memorandum of understanding for 5 years with the Junior Achievement of Georgia, paying them $50,000 in 5 increments of $10,000 each year. The first $10,000 payable in 2023 will come from our contingency fund. The remaining 4 payments of $10,000 each can be built into our corresponding budget, which will not affect FY23.
Thank you, Madam Administrator. You guys are mighty quiet on this. We don't have any colleagues in the queue. I see it. Commissioner from the first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'll start us off with the conversation. I just have a couple questions. This center itself, where would it be located? It'd be centrally located between Columbia and Richmond County?
The building currently is located in Columbia County off of Riverwatch Parkway.
Okay, and where about is where specifically on Riverwatch? Do we know?
Please.
Ashley Whitaker, Augusta, Georgia, 1105 Hogan Street, 30904. Yes, the center is actually, it was donated, the space that's in the Columbia County School Support Center where they have their school buses right now. So it's on Riverwatch Parkway on that corner. Yes. They just had a lot of extra space and we were able to fit into that spot.
Okay. I want to just submit, just so that we can have this conversation. I'm going to pass it because I'm sure some of my colleagues have other questions as well. But oftentimes we get a lot of requests from groups to say they want to do things to support our community. And as much as we love to do that, we also want to make sure that that actually happens, right? So, and I'll just give you an example. I'm not going to call out any names, but when you have a community that's living in poverty and a group comes up and says, we want to offer X, Y, and Z to this group because they need it. And in the group, the program starts, but then it's priced out and the group can't afford it, or they don't have transportation to get there. What happens is the program looks good on the paper, but it becomes, it's not accessible to the people who actually need it. The dollar amount, I'm sure we're going to have a conversation about that, but I just want to make sure that what we do for our kids or whatever investment we make for our kids, that it's accessible to everybody from one side of town to the other side, because that's going to be a challenge that you all are going to face.
Absolutely. And I hear you. I live in District 1. My kids are in Richmond County schools. So I totally understand. And that's why it's personally really important to me that we have both counties involved in this. Okay. Because when the kids come in, it's an equal partnership between Richmond and Columbia County. The only reason it's in Columbia County is because that was space that was available, and we easily were able to fit into it. It's going to be over a 30,000 square foot facility with parking. So as you can imagine, there's not a whole lot of buildings that are centrally located that are in that area. There is no cost to the schools to do this. The only thing is transportation, and we do work with the schools on that. In some of the other areas, we've done grants and stuff like that to try to fund it. I will say that as we speak, last time I was here, we had Richmond County teachers at one of our other centers going through tours. They are doing their training in July. So I can assure you this is going to happen, and it's going to happen for all of Richmond County middle school students.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, for me, I was in this world years ago with Ronald McDonald House, and sitting up here, I just think for me it just opens up a can that we've already been opening cans up here and not being able to put the lid on, but we've got the Alzheimer's Association building a new facility on Washington Road, Cognitive Health. We've got Salvation Army about to build a new shelter. We've got other nonprofits that if we do this, we subject ourselves to do them as well. And how are we going to base one off the other. Also, I mean, the fact that the Board of Education has given them $2 million, I mean, I think that shows representation from Richmond County. For me, I can't support it because of there's other people that are going to want the same opportunity. It's a great opportunity. They do great things for this community. But for me, I just feel like it opens us up to have to support other organizations of the same manner. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can I respond?
Yes, ma'am, you certainly can. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I understand what you're saying. I will point out that the funding that we receive from Richmond County, that is for construction. This is more of an operations cost. This is also a branding and marketing. There's not going to be branding or marketing for Richmond County from that contribution. That contribution ensures that, you know, the students, that facility was able to be built, the curriculum was able to be put into the schools, because all of those things do have a cost. But this would be for branding and representation inside the facility, inside the programming for the kids. So when they walk into the town hall, they would see Richmond County and Columbia County town halls. They would have a mayor instead of a commissioner or a county administrator, which I think is what is the Columbia County model. So this is so that when kids come into that space from Richmond County, because they will, that they see a true representation of the government that they live in the city that they live in. So I just want to be clear that I do understand we're very, very appreciative of both school systems for donating that money, but those were for construction costs and to build out. As you can imagine, it's very expensive, and it's gotten more expensive since we first started this project. And everything that goes into the simulation and the storefronts, as we call them, that covers our operations and lets us run this programming and to be able to bring the kids to the school for no cost.
Thank you, madam. See another colleague in the queue, Commissioner from the second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question. Is there a, can you give us the amount that each, I guess, entity pledged, Columbia County government as well as Columbia County school system? Like, is there a breakdown of what each person or each entity's pledge was?
Yes, but those are two different things completely. So the two school boards, what they did is they both contributed the same amount of money, the equal amount, which is the little about 2.5 million. That was for construction cost. That was for, you know, the curriculum to get the program started. The amount that we are asking of Columbia County government is the same that we're asking of Richmond County, because it would be a true partnership. It's right down the middle. So they were also asking them for $10,000 a year, the same as we're asking for Augusta, Richmond County.
And you've received those pledge?
They've said that they are interested in doing that, but I can't speak on their decision. We're still in the process the same way that we're in the process with Richmond County, but they are very much in favor of doing it.
Thank you, ma'am. Chair recognizes Commissioner Pulliam. You good?
I'm good right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the seventh again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And with what you said, kind of excites me a little bit, the fact that if the vote doesn't go the way you said, that basically you need a setup of this government in a room. Well, I'm sure that we could somehow donate, look at things, look at old things that we have. I'm sure we have an old podium. Like what you described of marketing the government in a room where people would see it, like in my mind, we should be able to do that without making a financial contribution. And I would hope that if it doesn't pass, that you'd be able to come back to us and kind of give us a wish list of things, and maybe, you know, even some sweat equity from the body up here of developing or building something or creating something there, because you're basically creating a space where people know what the government is. And I think that we have a lot of history here that possibly we don't use anymore, or maybe in their storage facility or something that we could help out with that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Help me understand the branding that you mentioned. You mentioned that as you enter the facility, there should be a co-brand between Columbia, Richmond County, both school districts. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, and it's really hard for me to kind of convey to you guys what the Discovery Center looks like, because I don't know if anybody up here has ever been inside one. I had not been until I took this job with JA. So inside that facility, there are 18 businesses that we call storefronts. Yes, that would be perfect. Within those storefronts, and when I say storefronts, that's just our lingo, but that's really the 18 businesses and organizations that have already partnered with us to be represented in this space. So The town hall is a big part of every Discovery Center. JA BizTown, which is the programming for sixth graders, we even have the kids, they elect a mayor before they come into the facility. So that mayor goes and does a lot of different activities within that space. This is not just about branding. Maybe I've oversimplified it. It's also about being able to put on our programming, like the different jobs that Augusta, Richmond County may have in government, letting the kids know what their opportunities are, what they need to do as far as an education in order to, achieve those types of goals. It also helps them understand the importance of voting and how voting works in their particular government, because it's different in different, communities. When I say branding too, I don't just mean like a podium, even though that would be fantastic. It's also the walls. The walls are wrapped. They're wrapped with different messaging, with infographics. You're able to decide that as someone who would be partnering on that space. So if you really wanted to feature, I'm just going to use an example. Let's say there's a department in the government that you really wanted to feature to the kids or to your adult volunteers, you would be able to do that on that wall, and that cost does cover that. So this is our Gwinnett County Center, the front of it. There is a rendering in there if you want to pull it up. It's in that same packet that has like the 1 through 18. And when I came before, I think I did show a picture of the town hall.
Yeah. And colleagues, one of the newest centers is down in Savannah. I don't know if any of you are going down to GMA this weekend. Savannah would be a great opportunity to see what they do. And let me just reiterate that our colleagues, what did you say? Okay. All right. I think that's a great idea. But listen, our colleagues at the school board, both school boards, voted in favor of this. I think it benefits not only our kids, but the kids at Columbia County. And I would ask that you consider it. Maybe not today, but this is something that's worth consideration that will benefit the children of Augusta, Richmond County school system. It will. All right. District 2, Commissioner Bullion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have another question. It's kind of in the same vein with the pledges. So if one government pledges $50,000 and the other one doesn't, does that mean whichever government does not pledge that amount of money will not be represented?
Yes, essentially. Because if you have one government paying for the cost of the build out and all of that branding, unless they agreed to have another government being there represented free of charge, typically, it would be a partnership.
So although that's located in another county, if that county, because in this case, it's located in Columbia County. If Columbia County did not pledge, Columbia County's government's not going to be represented in this building?
Yes, that's true.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none. Commissioner from the 4th.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned about Savannah having one of these, and I know we have a trip to Savannah this week.
Yes, sir.
And so if it would be okay with the my commission colleagues, can we look at this somewhere after next week after we get an opportunity? Because I'd like to see what this building is like, what it looks like.
May I ask what day you're going? Because since it's summer, we don't always have staff. Yeah.
So we're heading out Friday.
Okay.
Friday over the weekend.
Okay.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I think the conference concludes on Tuesday. But I don't know how many people will be there on Tuesday. So if you could just give them access, arrange a tour.
You would have to tell me what day and approximately the time, and then I could arrange a tour for you to be in there. During the summer, we have summer camps, and then also each facility does the upkeep during the summer since the schools are out of session. So
certainly. Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would it be in order if the commission could just agree to have the mayor communicate with Ms. Whitaker on organizing a tour of the facility in Savannah while we're down?
That'd be great.
And then we'll come back and just and make a decision that way.
I can coordinate that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I can't say how much Savannah has boasted on how this has benefited their school population and their students, and it's a wonderful facility that teaches simple things like financial literacy. It's been a boon for them, and I would like for our students to have the same opportunity. So Thank you, Ms. Whitaker. Are there any other questions from our colleagues? All right. We want to receive this as information. If there's no objection to that, and then I'll schedule an opportunity. It'll be a drop-in. Maybe they just open the facility. You can stop by for a few minutes just to see it, and then we'll have this brought back before us. If you guys agree, if there's no objection to that.
Okay, let's receive this information without objection.
You got it.
Okay.
All right.
I think our final item will be our addendum item, an update from our homeless task force.
All right. Thank you. Guys, I appreciate your patience. Sorry for having y'all wait through this.
Huh?
All the tabs are a little wacky. I think I signed them all.
You did, okay.
All right, sir. You ready? Ma'am, if you would, for the record.
30809.
I'm Daniel Evans, 2257 Overton Road, Augusta, Georgia, 30904.
All right. You guys have the floor.
So as you can see, we're giving an update on the Augusta Homeless Task Force. I know when you're used to seeing this duo of both of us up here, we're talking about the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. But today, I've got my hat on as the chair of the Homeless Task Force and my colleague and friend Daniel Evans from the Administrator's Office. So we're going to give you an update on a few things that are going on with the Homeless Task Force and our efforts to date.
So thank you. Just to level set again, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, we appreciate the opportunity to be back in front of you again. The Homeless Task Force was formed under the leadership of former Commissioner Dennis Williams and District 1 Commissioner Jordan Johnson in 2021 in response to the escalating issue of homelessness that we saw coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic and that still sits with us today. We established the 5 guiding principles that you see on the screen here as what were really needed to create the structural framework to address homelessness in perpetuity in a way that didn't just capture the moment of the response from COVID that we all saw when funds became available to meet exigent needs as they existed then, but to provide that long-term and, as I said, persistent systemic response to the issues of housing instability that our neighbors here in Augusta face on a regular basis. Oftentimes, members of local governments are criticized when homelessness becomes an issue in their community that feels like it's not being addressed. And I think that's often an issue of misunderstanding the 2 ways by which our homeless coalitions like the task force and other members of the community that address the issues of homelessness try to reduce homelessness in our community. Obviously, there is the housing of residents with housing needs, which can be done and is done very well by various partners in our community. But secondly, there is the elimination or the reduction of the inflow of new experiences of homelessness in our community. And that's something that we simply cannot ensure happens without a complete reversal of American culture, U.S. housing policies, and some structural approach to civil rights interpretations that have denied access to important resources to a lot of individuals. So what the Homeless Task Force seeks to do is to build that framework and structure to deliver services when instances of homelessness occur in our community, to provide that pathway or that avenue back to some level of stability and self-sufficiency for those families in our community that face those temporary instances of homelessness from time to time. So again, that's accomplished in 3 major ways that we sought. We sought to shift our community and our partner agencies from operating programs to performing systemic interventions, to partner and to leverage opportunities. We went from having individualized activities that focused on counting stats to having outcomes with qualitative measures. And we went from taking the approach of trying to transition individuals from homelessness to bringing them into housing first to ensure, again, the goal of making homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring in our community.
So the mission of the task force, as you can see here, is to lead a coordinated community effort here in Augusta, Richmond County, focus on the implementation of processes that end homelessness in our area. And that mission will be accomplished by in three main ways. One is just improving the access of a continuum of housing and services options for people who are in danger of or who are currently experiencing homelessness. And we're really working to meet them where they are by coordinating efficient and effective delivery of those services to each individual resident.
Second, also is to collect and effectively utilize data to help us inform policy, improve services, and meet housing needs. So really making data-driven decisions for our community, knowing that that can evolve and change. And then third, by increasing the availability of shelter, permanent housing, and affordable permanent housing for residents right here in our county.
And those all seek to feed into what is the vision of the Homeless Task Force, which is to see our community as one in which everyone has a decent, safe, affordable place to call home, but then also the resources and supports that they need in order to sustain that sense of placemaking.
So as we mentioned earlier, one of our main efforts is on the prevention side. So you can see here are a few efforts that have been put in place to date around the prevention. One is the First Stop, which is located in the parking lot where the Croc Center is. And it's really a one-stop center for people who are at risk of homelessness to receive various services in that one place rather than chasing services all around the community. And then back when we launched that and opened that back in October, and right around the same time, we also had the opening of the First Step partnership. And First Step works on finding employment opportunities for those who traditionally have hurdles to employment. So putting them straight to work and then helping them overcome or prevent homelessness. I know you've heard us talk before about the Magistrate Court partnership as it relates to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program that we started back in March of 2021. And then as you can see here, the ESG Prevention Services, over $86,000 in total assistance provided to 86 residents here in 34 households, preventing them from eviction. And again, what you're used to seeing us and hearing us talk about here is the Sigh of Relief Emergency Rent and Utility Assistance Program. So since we started that back in March of 2021, so not quite 2.5 years ago, over 4,000 households have been assisted by avoiding homelessness by assisting them with rent and then also assisting them with their utilities as well. So that equals over 7,500 residents right here in Richmond County. And then also we've got the partnership with HCD, United Way, and the Magistrate Court. So overall, we've provided over $16 million of assistance to these residents since March of 2021. And you can see here, over 18,000 months of rental arrearages have been paid to these residents who are in need.
So along that same time, as we've been in development with the Homeless Task Force and continue to push forward on the strategic planning efforts, we provided a number of services, principally through housing and community development, but also through our other continuum or Homeless Task Force partners. So as you can see, just since 2021, the impact of Rapid Rehousing, which is a program funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development that allows us to provide short-term financial assistance to a family that's experiencing homelessness. That's application fees, deposits, utility connection fees, and a couple months worth of rent to help people get back on their feet. We've seen major impact. So over 789 households have been served since the beginning of the special funding that became available in the CARES Act in 2021. And that's representative of over 2,300 residents who had experienced some level of homelessness during that time period and were able to achieve some level of permanent housing stability as a result of those direct interventions. So as we look forward to the future, in addition to continuing the efforts of Rapid Rehousing to help meet those exigent needs for emergency placements, we do have some exciting developments that this body has been made aware of, and we thank them for the approvals we've received. HCD is hard at work. Their housing and development teams have had some very productive meetings lately to see that our Home American Rescue Plan funding that was awarded to Augusta, Georgia last year will be put to use to develop up to 25 units of permanent supportive housing to meet those housing needs of our most vulnerable and hardest to house residents in Augusta, Georgia. That the tagline I often uses, these units are intended to create a market for which our private market rental properties simply do not exist. For someone that doesn't have a credit history, doesn't have a rental history, may have a very lax employment history, they still need housing. And housing has become more and more of a big business these days. We see that property management companies need to see data that suggests someone will be a good tenant. And so we know that for those residents that we have in our community that don't fit those data profiles, we have to be a little more intentional and see units come to the market that are intended to meet their housing needs specifically. There are continued conversations with the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disability about long-term supports that will come in from a mental health standpoint to help ensure that long-term stability for residents served through this development and developments of a similar nature that some of our private partners are underway with. In addition, a major outcome that started right in unison with the beginning of the Homeless Task Force was the increased outreach services. The partnerships principally between CSRA EOA and the Marion Barnes Resource Center team and our local law enforcement personnel from the Richmond County Sheriff's Office and the Richmond County Marshal's Office. This has been of a scale that I've not seen before. Up until our recent blip with technology where we've been a little offline with it, we had about a 2-year period there where twice a month, once in the morning, or once in a daytime hour and once in an evening hour, we have concerted teams going out and making contact with individuals that are living in unsheltered housing situations to help build the rapport necessary to bring them back into hopefully a service delivery strategy that will get them into some permanent housing. You know, the research suggests that you're never going to be successful just walking up to someone on first blush and being able to get them to come in for services. So this long-term investment that our outreach teams have made, and especially our law enforcement officers, has been crucial in establishing the credibility of our services with this population to make that impact. We've also done a really good job in the community is increasing access to basic needs, right? As much as we want long-term permanent housing solutions for individuals in our community that face homelessness, as you heard Ms. Burnett say, we need to meet folks where they are. And as much as they may need an apartment in the long term, today they need a shower. And so we have a great partner at Project Refresh that's come forward to help meet those needs where people are. The efforts from the Salvation Army at the Center of Hope to have more impactful, concerted, regular resource events that they're branding under their community connection model right now has also, again, contributed to that credibility of the service delivery strategy and meeting some of those basic needs that individuals in our community are experiencing while they may be on the path back to some level of housing stability.
Just a couple of last points here. We do have about 150 to 175 people who are on the Homeless Task Force distribution list. We do meet once a month, and then we've got about 50 to 75 people who attend those meetings every month. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for being a regular attendee of those. If you're interested in getting those communications, we will also meet this Thursday. And then we do have an executive committee that also meets once a month. Some of them are actually here today. We've got representation from Easter Seals, Gap Ministries, Randy Bars, who is the husband of the late Linda Bars, who is an amazing community advocate for us. These are all some passionate folks that are here to help us push this across the finish line. And we've got 6 different committees that are actively meeting to make sure that we're working in specific areas to make sure that we can make homelessness look very different right here in our area. And then you see here on the slide the various partnerships we've got: law enforcement, mental health, day shelter. Really, it's a collaboration of folks sitting around the table that are really passionate about this work and figuring out how we can do this together really without much resource. So we're putting extra time of all of the time and resource limited jobs that many of us have in the nonprofit space to really make this happen. So I'm very grateful for the folks that are here today and everyone who's on the task force to help make this look different for our community.
And I apologize, in my previous slide I failed to highlight an item that we'll be coming back before this commission with in a few months, but it's a major impact from the strategies that were described to you in the task force strategic plan. As long as I've worked in this community in the human services business, the availability of services during daytime hours has been a major need. All of our shelters that operate overnight stays have not really ever offered, except for in extreme weather situations, the opportunity for individuals that are not employed to have somewhere to be during the day. Much less somewhere productive that can connect them to resources and give them a chance at a hand up that's not available if they're just simply forced onto the streets. So we're excited to say that we've put together a really, what I think to be a creative and leveraged approach that we will be back in front of this body on behalf of Housing and Community Development to talk to you all about in short order. But that need for day shelter services is crucial in our community because it's one of the areas especially where you see the overlap where homelessness ripples through your community. Those of us that work downtown, especially in District 1, unfortunately, we see it, right? It's out there every day as you're driving between meetings, as you're going somewhere for lunch. That visual impact of homelessness, it ripples throughout your community. Your children see it, they don't know what to process of it, and that's something that we can really make a difference while doing something that will make a huge impact on the service needs of our most vulnerable residents in our community. So that's a really important thing that I feel like the structure of the task force gave birth to, and we hope that when we come back in a few months, we'll be able to garner your support for that project as well.
All right.
With that interruption, we can take any questions, sir, if you have any.
You got it. I see a couple of colleagues in the queue. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Wayne Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate y'all doing this presentation for us. My question is that your slides in the beginning was talking about homing people that was getting evicted, and I appreciate you doing that. While you was talking on the first part, I was thinking about all these homeless people that we have throughout our community that's actually, we need to try to figure out a way to keep the influx from coming into our town. I know that we have Savannah, Columbia, different counties, different states are giving these individuals a bus ticket and probably a little change to come to Augusta. Columbia County doesn't have this issue.
Yes, sir. We've been made aware of that through the task force, and I won't speak for them, but our law enforcement teammates that work in that environment with us have also been made very aware of that, and I'm sure they're taking the efforts necessary to ensure that that gets dangerously close, right, to some issues that relate to legal matters. So we want to make sure there also isn't any human trafficking going on. We know this is a huge hub for issues that relate to that as well. But, you know, one thing to keep in mind is that people often move, of all stripes and colors. Folks often move for economic opportunity. And in some version or some fashion, folks are getting the impression that when they're experiencing homelessness in outlying communities, that this is a county where they can receive those services. I don't think that's a fair read. We're as under-resourced as any other county is, but that is forefront of our outreach team's mind, is to make sure we identify persons that are coming from other places. And we do have a process in place that Ms. Barr has actually put in place last year, where if someone is experiencing homelessness here and they have a defined destination that we can verify that they can go to, usually to reunify with family, we have some private support that will pay for an out-of-town bus ticket to return them to where they should be located.
My problem is that some of the panhandlers that sits on the corner of at these exits of Wrightsboro Road, Peach Orchard Road, Washington Road, Stevens Creek Road, I mean, it's just habitual throughout this community. And it's actually an organized effort by the panhandlers. They actually take shifts. But here's the problem. They leave all their doggone trash. It's unsightly. For me, it's unwelcome, because they are here because it's actually somebody sent them here on a bus ticket. Now, the homeless that we had here prior, we need to take care of them. The people that's being evicted, we need to take care of them. But when you got these homeless people, the vagrants that's actually building villages within our wooded area, you got them walking naked down the center of Broad Street, they committing crimes. Where's our law enforcement at on that? I just don't want it to become a sanctuary city to where we have tents up and down on Broad Street where homeless people are living. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner from the 10th. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for the work you do. Couple of things. Did the panhandling ordinance that was sent to this body from Columbia County, did y'all ever discuss that as an executive committee?
We have not directly addressed that ordinance as part. Largely, our interpretation, as Commissioner Guilfoyle implied, is panhandling, especially in Augusta, is not largely a homeless issue, right? It is largely a structured effort. It is individuals trying to make money that may actually not be homeless. And a lot of the instances that our sheriff's office deputies have encountered are folks that are not from this county and are not necessarily identified as homeless who are doing most of the panhandling. Now, I will be fair, Broad Street, especially in the evening hours, there's a few individuals that will come up with, cups in their hand, and that is an issue we need to look at as a community. But we've not had a good grasp on it through the task force, as that's really more of a public safety issue than a homeless issue.
Okay, I'll make sure to send it to you, because it's more like a safety ordinance. It wouldn't be implemented on Broad Street. It'd be the main corridors where we're seeing a lot of this, and I think that I would love to have the recommendation from the task force of support, because if Columbia County can implement it, we can implement it. So they just did that earlier this year, and I sent it to this body, and I should have sent it to the task force, and I'll make sure to send it to the body. I get a lot of people in my district, obviously, with the homelessness on Washington Road I-20 corridor that want to help. What's the best way for them to help?
We have a meeting on Thursday. come to the homeless task force meeting. And like at our last meeting, we had updates from all the committees, and we also asked everyone not just to come to those task force meetings and warm a seat, but come and join a committee and do something. And so over half of, we've got fluctuations of who can attend the meetings every month, but we had a huge surge of people who signed up for committees because they heard what the committee was doing and said, I can help there. I've got a skill set there, or I've got connections here. This is where I can help most. So that's really one of the best places, is to join a committee. As many of us know from boards and other things, most of the work happens in committees. So join a task force and be on a committee.
Yeah, and I guess I'm gonna push a little bit back. Like my question is like, yeah, great committees are great, but are there tangible things that you're going, like, I mean, Naomi, we talked about wrapping water bottles. Is there, like, maybe a printer would want to pay for the wrap? Like, let's give them things. Let's not just join a committee. And I guess that's where I'm pushing back to say, can y'all tangibly give tangible items that this community can grasp hold on to help, to where not everybody can make a 2 o'clock meeting on Thursday. I haven't been to a lot of them because I work, and I apologize.
That's exactly right.
But I feel like we haven't done as good a job. If there was a list of things that you needed and was sent to this body, and we could put it on social media and like really push the issue to the community, because we're not pushing the issue enough in my mind.
I agree, sir. We've been really focused on big ticket items, these big projects we want to see happen when it comes to affordable housing development in the day shelter, but we do need more tangible things. And to the point I was making a little while ago, we need to do more to meet people where they are right now. So those immediate need things. I think Ms. Stanton that you referenced has a wonderful project with Mr. Bars underway that you referenced about the water bottles, that's going to come to the forefront on Thursday for people to get traction with. But some of that boots on the ground stuff that people can get more involved with on an easy sort of access standpoint, that is the focus going forward, as we have some of these bigger ticket projects under management, if you will.
Gotcha. As far as the CARES Act money, is that completely done now from your all's perspective?
Not entirely. So the portion of the CARES Act that came through HUD for HCD, that is portions of the dollars that we're going to devote towards the day shelter services, and they are still being used to provide those rapid rehousing services through housing and community development as well.
Gotcha. And then my last question is around the relief program. Like, I know there's been a significant backup. Is it any better? Where are we? How is that going? Because I get asked that too.
So there is still a queue. And as of last Monday, based on the funds that we've got available, we've actually closed the application portal, so no one else can come into the portal. There are already also enough filings that those are the folks that we are prioritizing. And so those who are actually at the highest risk of eviction, those are the ones that we're at this point of prioritizing right now. But really no one else new can come into the queue at this point.
Is there a time gap or frame, or is that like?
We've been running around 90-ish days.
Gotcha.
Is where we've been. But there are days we'll have 10 applicants and days we'll have 200.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, sir. I want to start off by telling y'all thank you for what you do. I know the lift is heavy, and so thank y'all. You're not on the sidelines. You're actually in the game, sleeves rolled up every day, literally walking through the woods trying to get people services. So I appreciate you for that. I just can't say thank you enough. But I do have a question. Can you share a little bit about what the street outreach team has been doing? Because Daniel, you made a great point. I mean, we how can I phrase this? We have to make sure that we're taking services to people, right? Which is why the street encampment team was even created. To Commissioner Guilfoyle's point about tent cities, no ordinance that we have on the book allows for tent cities, none of them. So I know that when there's an encampment that comes up, there's a process that we ignite to make sure that that encampments are cleared, that folks have the help that they need. So can you share a little bit about what the street encampment team has done, and sort of where you're seeing the highest concentration of encampments and things like that in Richmond County? I know we have a heat map that was shown at the task force meeting, and also how can someone report that information if they see a homeless encampment or something like that?
Absolutely, and
because this helps us get involved instead of.
Absolutely, yes, sir. That's 100%. So we are still developing. I'm going to start with your last question first. That's still under development. Part of our issues with network have pulled some of that back from us. I think that sending messages through 311 is a conduit the city can utilize for now to capture information. But the data system through ArcGIS that was built on the back end for this effort for the task force will eventually create a forward-facing module, I guess you would call it, for residents to be able to supply information about, hey, I think it looks like some folks are living here, those kind of things that we don't want to seem like overly policing the effort. We want the authenticity of the engagement to exist, right? We're here to help. Even the law enforcement officers in that function, they're still law enforcement officers, but their main goal there is to provide services, and they're the ones that are able to provide really important things like transportation. When folks are like, hey, if I can just get a ride to the doctor, I can get my letter. So law enforcement is a big piece there. Within the street outreach teams, two main things are happening, right? The gathering of information to better understand our unsheltered homeless population, because an average person, a nurse or something that falls on hard times and can't make the bills and receives an eviction is facing a whole different set of circumstances than someone who has lived in the wood line behind 2nd and Charles for the last 12 years, right? And so we're really trying to better understand at a deeper level than we even accomplished during the annual point in time count in January. What is our unsheltered homeless population? What is the nature of their issues and barriers? Is it as heavy in mental health and substance abuse as some of the anecdotal information suggests it is, or is it more economic in nature? So that really deep dive of cultivating information about those populations, and for lack of a better term, that rapport building that I spoke to, really being able to, the first time you meet, you may start off with a nickname or initials, the next time you come back, you're working your way to a first name. It's a relationship building model within human services that vulnerable populations have trust issues typically. And when the team approaching them is composed of volunteers, some folks that may have decently fancy clothes on, and then law enforcement, you're creating a weird optic. So we really try to soften that through the delivery of some basic need services. They take basic hygiene items with them, what I call care kits of a sort of blessing bags, if you call them that, just ways to break the ice with that audience so that they begin to build that relationship model so that they can then get them to trust the referral to, hey, check out the Augusta Rescue Mission. Have you tried the Center of Hope? They can get you in a program. They can get you connected with job skills training. Allowing those conversations to evolve organically with those residents has really been the main function of that team. And then in unique situations where we simply have the need to relocate exigently someone. So I'll give you one anecdotal example. This body approved a really great project that's going on Commerce Drive with the Golden Harvest Food Bank expansion. Well, we had two families that were living on what is now the construction site, and that having the machinery in place of that outreach team within a day or two of Mrs. Burnett and I finding out about that, we were able to have that resolved through the outreach team and their ability to use their methods of engagement to connect with those families that were living in that tree line and not just shoo them down the road, because again, on Gordon Highway, there wasn't a safer place to go, but actually bring them into shelter, and they were able to connect them with the Salvation Army and progress their situation from there. So really that's sort of not the main function of the outreach team, but it's an important function as we're a county that continues to grow and we see undeveloped land. We talked about adaptive reuse of buildings. We're going to see more and more of this, right? More and more places that folks have found to find themselves when they had nowhere to go, and we're going to need professionals in that space to help move them to a more suitable location as we continue to see more and more development in our county.
Thank you, and thank you again.
Thank you. Administrator, I saw you were in the queue, and I took you. Are you good? You sure? All right. Guys, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
So may I make a motion to receive this information?
All right, I have a motion.
Without objection.
Without objection.
Without objection. So I have a motion from the commissioner from the 5th and a second from the commission from the 3rd. I think you were from the 9th.
From the 1st made the motion.
Okay. First and the 9th. Motion and second. Let's vote. Thank you guys for being here. Have a great rest of the day. I appreciate your patience and staying this long. All right.
Yes, sir, we got it.
All right. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, this meeting is hereby closed. Thank you so much for being here.